Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. I've got my Audible sponsorship going this week. I'm sure you're all familiar with the routine by now. As always, you can start listening with a free 30-day Audible trial, which gets you full access to thousands of all-you-can-listen audiobooks, original entertainment, and podcasts, all included in the Plus catalogue. Just visit audible.com/jingles or text JINGLES to 500 500. And with this month's free Audible credit, I'm recommending you try out the latest audiobook by the author of The Martian, Andy Weir. It's called Project Hail Mary, and as you'd expect from the author of The Martian, it is very, very good indeed. Alexa, resume Project Hail Mary on Audible.
Starting your selection.
I'm wearing a breathing mask. It's tight to my face and connected to a hose that goes behind my head. Can I get up? No, but I can move my head a little. I look down at my body. I'm naked and connected to more tubes than I can count. There's one in each arm, one in each leg, one in my gentleman's equipment, and two that disappear under my thigh. I'm guessing one of them is up where the sun doesn't shine. That can't be good. Also, I'm covered with electrodes. The sensor-type stickers, like for an EKG, but they're all over the place. Well, at least they're only on my skin instead of jammed into me. Oh! I wheeze. I try again. Where am I?
Project Hail Mary isn't the first audiobook that Andy Weir has done since the success of The Martian. His previous novel, Artemis, it wasn't bad, but it was nowhere near as good as The Martian. I'm happy to report that with Project Hail Mary, he is definitely 100% back on form. This is one audiobook that comes highly recommended, not just because of how good it is, but of how good a deal it is, because the audiobook by itself, if you were to buy it without an Audible membership, would set you back more than £24. And that's a lot of cheese. But you get a free audiobook every month with your Audible membership, and the membership only costs $7.99. So, yeah, $7.99 for something that would normally cost you 3 times that amount, and you can do this every month. You know it makes sense. That's audible.com/jingles, or just text jingles to 500 500. Well, I suppose I should crack on and get this episode of Mingles with Jingles done. I've had to tear myself away from Wrath of the Lich King Classic. I've just leveled my second character to 80, this time an Elemental and Restoration Shaman. I realise that if you don't play World of Warcraft, or have never played World of Warcraft, this probably isn't going to mean an awful lot to you, but an Elemental Shaman basically harnesses the power of the elements. You know, fire, lightning, all that kind of thing. And leveling her up was a bit of a chore, because until you hit level 75 and you get access to the Lava Burst spell, it's basically just you stick a flame shock on the target and then you spam lightning bolt at it until it dies or you do. It's also very resource intensive. All of your spells are powered by your mana pool, and well, every 3 or 4 kills you have to stop and drink, and you know, it's a bit of a drag. But then you hit level 75 and you get access to this Lava Burst spell. And it's on an 8-second cooldown. You can't spam it, but you don't need to because it does a shit ton of damage. It's a guaranteed crit for double damage if you have a flame shock on the target, and you always have a flame shock on the target. So, one, everything's dying much, much faster, which is nice because big numbers are always good. And 2, you're not running out of mana as often because everything's dying faster. So that suddenly became a lot of fun. But then I hit level 80 last night, and oh my god. So at level 79, my Lava Burst crits, and they're always crits because I always have a Flame Shock on the target, we're hitting for around about 5,000 to 6,000 damage. Which is great because most of the, bad guys that I'm doing quests that involve killing in Ice Crown, in Northrend, in Wrath of the Lich King, have around about 12,000 health. So it's lightning bolt, flame shock, lava burst, usually dead. Well, I hit level 80 and I thought I'll go and quickly train up my new skills and equip all my level 80 gear and, stuff that I had sitting in my bags waiting. And I trained the second rank of the lava burst spell. And then I went straight back to Ice Crown and I had a quest to kill a whole bunch of elites. These are usually group quests, so I partnered up with, I think it was a hunter. My lava bursts were now critting for 9,000 damage. I mean, holy shit. Elemental shamans are seriously overpowered. Plus, it's really, really easy to get into a group as an elemental shaman. Not just because they do absurd damage per second, but also because if you have dual talent specialization, where you can basically pick 2 different talent specs, it costs 1,000 gold. But it allows you to have, well, for example, my shaman is an elemental shaman, but with one click of a button and a little bit of downtime, she is a restoration shaman. She's a healer. So getting into a group is easy because you just go restoration. And the bonus is almost all, not all, but almost all elemental shaman gear is also good for restoration shamans. So I don't even have to build up a separate gear set. I mean, you kind of do a little, but I don't want to get bogged down in the details here. But essentially, any gear that I get that's good for the healer, say I need to get into a group quick to do a dungeon, I just switch to healer, heal the dungeon rather than DPS the dungeon, and any loot that drops that's good for the healer is also very probably going to be very, very good for the elemental shaman side as well. So it's just a win-win situation. It's not all I've been doing this weekend, though. It kind of escaped your attention that Warhammer 40,000 Darktide had a closed beta test this weekend on Steam, and it was glorious. For the benefit of the uninitiated, Warhammer 40,000 Darktide is basically a Warhammer 40k version of... does anybody remember Vermintide 2? Which was a sort of Warhammer Fantasy... Well, it wasn't sort of. It was Warhammer Fantasy, sort of Age of Sigmar-based co-op, I want to say shooter, and there was some shooting, but it was mostly melee. You get the idea. It was a horde shooter co-op game, and it was great. Very, very popular on Twitch. And Darktide is basically a Warhammer 40k version of it. And, yep, sold. I mean, I know everybody loves Space Marines. There are no Space Marines in this game, by the way. I mean, there may be some Chaos Marines later on at harder difficult levels. I don't know. But you don't get to play as a Space Marine. So, and I know, the Space Marines are the poster boys of the 41st millennium, blah, blah, so on and so on. And while Space Marines are great, and the game Space Marine, which is also getting a sequel, I think, next year, Space Marine 2, is probably going to be fantastic too. But I always just wanted to be a guardsman. Just a regular human with a lasgun. And that wish comes true in Darktide. Well, kind of. You're not... There's a character class that you can choose that is basically an Imperial Guardsman, or Guardswoman, whatever. Even though none of the characters are actually... They're all prisoners, basically. So, for example, think of it as... Do you remember there was another horde shooter game, GTFO, where a bunch of prisoners got dropped down into a pit with a bunch of zombies and mutants, and they had to retrieve stuff, and it was a good game. It's kind of like that. Rather than being actual members of the Astra Militarum or the Inquisition or so on, you're a bunch of prisoners with explosive collars around your necks. One of you, for example, could be a former guardsman who was sent to a penal battalion for insubordination. One could be a rogue psyker, and so on and so on. It's not really that important. The point is, I get to fulfill my fantasy of being a bog-standard Astra Militarum or former Astra Militarum human with a lasgun, shitty armour, and a boot knife, facing down hordes of chaos heretics. It's a lot of fun. It's not without its issues. It was a closed beta after all. There were some frame rate issues, which tended to smooth out once the game had been running and most of the levels had been loaded in and so on and so on. There were disconnections, but again, it's to be expected. It is a beta test, and they're not just beta testing the game, they're kind of stress testing the servers as well. Although it did have a nice feature that if you do get disconnected, and you probably did get disconnected if you played it over the weekend, when you reconnected, it would remember what group you were in and where you were on the level that you were doing. It would put you right back in there. So you didn't lose all your progress. You didn't have to find a new group and start a new dungeon run, if you like. So that was a nice feature. It definitely needs a bit of polish, and I think it's coming out next month. It's looking really, really good. I'm not entirely sure how recent the beta test was, though, because a month is not a lot of time to do final polishing to a game. It's possible, because they did this with the Odyssey beta test for Elite Dangerous, where the version that we were testing in the beta wasn't actually the latest version. It was just the version that was ready for testing by the general public. Frontier insisted that they had a much, much more polished and bug-free version that they were working on for release. Turned out they were lying. But that's usually the case when you develop a game and you open it up to public testing. The version that goes out on test is not the latest and most polished and most refined version of the game. You're still working on that behind the scenes. So hopefully that's the case with Darktide. But even if, there are bugs on launch, that's kind of become standard these days. I mean, God almighty, look at Wrath of the Lich King Classic. It's a 15-year-old version of a game, and it's still got bugs in it that were present in the original release of Wrath of the Lich King 15 years ago. So, this sort of thing isn't exactly unusual. As long as we're not talking Fallout 76 levels of buggery, based on what I saw this weekend, we're definitely not. As long as we're not looking at that, it'll be fine. And it's Warhammer 40k. More news broke last week about the requirement in Blizzard Activision games like Overwatch 2 and the upcoming Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. That's really, I hate that. So I'm getting sidetracked here, and I believe I've mentioned this before, but Activision are publishing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which is coming out, I'm not sure, soon. Let's see. Oh, wow, very soon. October 28th for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. Right. And if you've pre-ordered it, you'll be able to access the campaign early beginning October 20th. Okay, fine. That's not the problem I have. The problem I have is the fact that they're calling this game Modern Warfare 2. Modern Warfare 2 came out on the 10th of November 2009. Come up with a new name for your game already. Yeah, I get it. It's brand recognition. They're trading on nostalgia here. But what? The Call of Duty brand isn't strong enough already? You can't call it Call of Duty Modern Warfare 6 or whatever it is by now? No, whatever. Getting sidetracked. The point here being that there was quite a kerfuffle associated with Overwatch 2 recently, because it turned out that it was entirely possible, well, not to buy the game, because Overwatch 2 is a free-to-play title, but you could install the game on the Battle.net app, fire it up, and then be denied the opportunity to enjoy the Overwatch 2 experience with millions of other players, which mostly consists of sitting in a queue at position number 400,000 waiting to actually get into a game, but you wouldn't even get to enjoy that unless you had provided a phone number associated with your Battle.net account in order to verify your account. And Blizzard had pretty solid reasons for wanting to do this, because it's a free-to-play game, and I kind of covered this last week, but if you're going to cheat and hack, in the original Overwatch, that was a paid title. It wasn't free to play. So having your account banned meant you had to go out and buy a new copy of the game. So that was the deterrence, if you like. But with Overwatch 2 being a free to play game, there's no deterrence involved. It's free to play. If you get one account banned, then you just create a new account. It doesn't cost you anything. So you can kind of see Blizzard's reasoning behind this. For there to be any kind of deterrence against bad actors, cheaters, hackers, people just generally being all-round dicks while they were playing, you had to threaten them with something to lose. And since you can't threaten them with the loss of a free-to-play game, because there's no investment made there, they associated it with your phone number. So, if you got your account banned, you would have to get a new phone. The problem that a lot of people were experiencing was that they well, they didn't buy the game, it's free to play, but they installed it, they fired it up, and then they were asked to provide a phone number, and, well, okay, fair enough. You sure this isn't for advertising and marketing purposes, Blizzard? No, of course it isn't. And then they input their phone number, and the game told them, nope, sorry, no prepaid phones. Excuse me? What? Prepaid phones aren't free, you know, Blizzard. I mean, the clue's in the title. Prepaid. But nope, sorry, you couldn't verify your account and play Overwatch 2 with a prepaid phone. So that upset a lot of people. But what upset a lot more people was the news that Blizzard also, or, well, Activision, seriously, I suppose, they're the same company. In this case, we're also going to require the same phone verification system for Modern Warfare 2. Hang on a minute. Is Modern Warfare 2 free to play now, the same as Overwatch 2? No, it isn't. Now, there is an investment that you have to make in order to pay, Freudian slip, in order to play Modern Warfare 2. It's a full price game. So, why does it need... Seriously, if you need people to provide a phone number in order to combat cheating, to provide a deterrence, to give people something that they could lose if they get their account banned, because it's a free-to-play game like Overwatch 2, you know, that flies. We can understand the reasoning behind that, even if we don't like it. Then why do you require the same phone verification system in order to play a full-price title like Modern Warfare 2? Are you absolutely sure this doesn't have anything to do with advertising and marketing, Blizzard? Or Activision? Blizzard Activision, whatever. Well, unsurprisingly, a lot of people got a bit upset about this too. And, well, they've had a bit of a walk back on the whole phone verification thing for Modern Warfare 2, but only a bit. The good news is it's only people on PC who are going to need, I quote, a text-enabled mobile phone number to verify their accounts and play the game. Players on consoles will not have to verify themselves via SMS. Oh, right, so it's just the PC players. Well, Blizzard Activision did try to reassure the PC community by saying that if you've already verified yourself for Call of Duty Warzone, then it's the same verification system on Battle.net. So basically, legacy players won't have to re-verify. But that's not the same as saying you don't have to do it. It's just saying that anybody who has already done it doesn't have to do it again. So that's not really much of a concession, is it, Blizzard Activision? Oh, and if you're planning to play it via Steam, then you will also have to go through the process. You'll have to have a phone number associated with your Steam account. So, just to summarise, Overwatch 2 requires that you have a telephone number associated with your account, and it cannot be a prepaid telephone number. The reason given for this is that because Overwatch 2 is a free-to-play game, if you were to be a general all-round bad egg, dick, cheater, hacker, whatever in Overwatch 2, and you got your account banned, there's absolutely nothing to stop you from just rolling a fresh account. It doesn't cost you anything. So in order to provide some kind of deterrence, they've associated something with the account that you wouldn't want to lose, your phone. And that's fine because it's a free-to-play game. But they have exactly the same system required for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Not to be confused with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 or Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, because seriously, just come up with a new name for your game. But they do require this also for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and it's a full price title. Blizzard assured everybody, and again I'm quoting, that your phone number will only be used for security reasons and that the game does not use SMS verification data for marketing purposes. Yeah, I'm not convinced. Meanwhile, Activision Blizzard are in the shit again. Yet another sexual harassment lawsuit, this time filed by an employee against a manager who was eventually fired, keyword being eventually. Without going into the details of the case, because until a court ruling is made, it's all he said, she said. Although I suspect the plaintiff probably has a fairly strong case in this case, because the manager was actually fired for sexual misconduct, but anyway. The facts of the case, which are not an issue, are this. The plaintiff, who is unnamed, first met the defendant, Miguel Vega, in 2009 or 2010, during which time she, and I quote here, regrettably sent him compromising photos of herself. So there was some consent here. at least at the beginning of the relationship 13 years ago. However, this relationship ended in 2011 when the plaintiff met her future husband. In 2016, Vega, the defendant, assisted her in getting a job as an independent contractor at Blizzard, which was upgraded to a full-time position in 2020. For 4 years, the defendant is alleged to have made constant and unrelenting sexual advances to the plaintiff, threatened to have her fired if she reported him to Human Resources, threatened to expose the photos that she'd shared with him shortly after they first met. Most recently, this is alleged to have happened in August of 2021 when he said, "Maybe I'll blackmail you with those photos. I have to get you to leave your husband so you can come stay with me." Repeated requests that he delete the photos were refused. And the situation came to a head on the 23rd of August 2021 when the plaintiff filed another complaint, more on that in a moment, against Vega through a different manager. This time, action was taken. Vega was fired 1 week later on September the 1st, 2021. This was not the first time she had filed a complaint against this guy. She did it for the first time in 2017 through another manager. Blizzard Activision took no action. She had to endure another 4 years of constant sexual harassment in the workplace before submitting a second complaint and eventually getting this guy fired. Activision Blizzard, and I'm quoting from the PC Gamer article here, Activision Blizzard defended the timeliness of his response in a statement sent to the Daily Mail, a British newspaper. "We take all employee concerns seriously," a company rep said. "When the plaintiff reported her concerns to HR, we immediately opened an investigation and Mr. Vega was terminated within 10 days. We have no tolerance for this kind of misconduct." So there was more than enough evidence to get this guy sacked within a week of that second complaint being raised. They have no tolerance for this kind of behaviour. Well, you kind of do, though, don't you? Because this wasn't the first complaint that had been raised. There was another complaint that was filed 4 years earlier. So you actually did tolerate this kind of behaviour for 4 years. So when the second complaint was raised, 23rd of August 2021, you found enough evidence to get this guy sacked almost immediately. So what was so special about the second complaint? Hang on a minute. 23rd of August 2021. Because on the 20th of July 2021, as a result of a 2-year investigation, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing filed a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment, employment discrimination, and retaliation against employees who complained about any of these things on the part of Blizzard Activision. This lawsuit prompted a media shitstorm of epic proportions, coming as soon as it did on the heels after basically the same thing happening at Ubisoft. It led to the resignation of J. Allen Brack, Blizzard's president, numerous high-profile employees being fired for sexual misconduct, which Blizzard later investigated themselves and found that nobody had actually done anything wrong, but hey, that's another story. And all of this happening pretty much right at the same time as the defendant in the plaintiff in the Manuel Vega case thought, you know what, maybe I'll get taken seriously now, filed another complaint, and got the guy fired within a week of the complaint being lodged, because it turns out that big companies do actually give a shit about sexual harassment and sexual discrimination in the workplace. But they only give a shit about it when they're being investigated for it and people are watching them. You see, here's the thing about human resources departments in big companies. People think, and this is a very common misconception, people think that the human resources department, aside from its day-to-day job of managing the workforce, is also responsible for protecting the workforce against abuse at the hands of the employers. That is quite simply not the case. It's easy to understand why people think that's the case, and it kind of is, but as is fairly typical in the modern corporate world, it is, but only in a kind of backwards arse about tit way, because that's the only way to make big companies give a shit about the employees. They don't actually give a shit about the employees. You have to understand that if you work for any company, they see you as a necessary annoyance. I mean, you have to have employees in order to get on with the business of making tons and tons of filthy money, but employees are a pain in the arse. They get in the way, they have complaints. And despite the best efforts of business leaders and conservative politicians the world over, they do still have all of these annoying rights. Not many of them, but enough to be a problem. So what's supposed to happen is a complaint is raised, human resources investigate it properly, they take it seriously, and if there are grounds for a termination, the guilty party gets their ass terminated. And this doesn't happen because they actually give a shit about the well-being of the person, the employee who raised the complaint in the first place. It happens to protect the company from being sued by the person who raised the complaint if the complaint isn't taken seriously and proper action isn't taken. Because that could cost them millions. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. It's not about the well-being, safety and security of the employees. Money's at stake here. Potentially lots and lots and lots of money. And that's the only way to make a company give a shit about the employees. If you threaten them with losing lots and lots of money if they don't. That's why companies have human resources departments, is to protect them against their employees. Because if the human resources department does its job properly, if it does its due diligence, if a complaint is raised, it takes it seriously, it investigates it, and it finds that there is no cause for dismissal here, that can save them millions in court later when the person who filed a complaint isn't satisfied and sues them. Because they can turn around to the evidence in the investigation and say, well, look, here it is. We did everything properly. We did exercise due diligence, and we did not find any cause for dismissal. And that will really help their case if things ever go to court. On the other hand, when the HR department does what it usually does and thinks, oh, it's another one of those troublesome employees causing a fuss, making allegations against one of our respected managers, we must protect the company, doesn't do due diligence, does dismiss the allegation, does try to just sweep everything under the carpet, they are in fact working against the company's best interests by not taking it seriously. That's why the laws were set up the way they are. Because the only way to make big companies give a shit about their employees and treat them like decent human beings is to threaten them with financial penalties if they don't. And that's why they set up the HR departments in the way that they are set up. Not to protect the employees against employer abuse, but to protect the employers against claims of misconduct by the employees. But it only works if the HR departments actually investigate any of these claims and treat them seriously. And it's baffling to me that they only ever seem to do their jobs properly when it's too late and they're already under the spotlight. Anyway, ironically enough, I need to get back to a Blizzard Activision title right now and start doing some heroic dungeons on my brand new level 80 Restoration Shaman. Look, I know. They might be a bunch of dicks, but they do make good games. Or they did make good games. Let's not forget Wrath of the Lich King, the second expansion for World of Warcraft, is 15 years old. But it was easily the best expansion that World of Warcraft ever released. Or maybe I'll jump into the Warhammer 40,000 Darktide beta with Rita. I'm recording this on Sunday, so I've still got 1 day left of the beta. Who knows? Whatever I end up doing. I hope you guys enjoy your gaming as much as I'm about to enjoy mine. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Mingles with Jingles, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.